Andre the Giant was more than just a famous wrestler. He was a man people couldn't forget. He stood 7 feet 4 inches tall and weighed over 520 pounds. But more than his huge size, he was known for how much he drank, sometimes 7,000 calories of alcohol in one night. He was a myth, a legend, someone people looked up to and stared at, not just because of his size, but because of how he lived. Andre was known for living life the way he wanted. He didn't like going to the doctor. He avoided medical treatment for years because he feared it would end his wrestling career. He wrestled through pain, smiled through discomfort, and always gave the crowd what they wanted. But when he died in 1993, people began asking questions about his personal life, especially about his daughter, Robin Christensen-Roussimoff. Andre's life was truly unique from the very beginning. He was born in a small village in France called Grenoble on May 19, 1946. His full name was André René Roussimoff. Even as a newborn, he was different. He weighed 13 pounds at birth, which was much heavier than the average baby. His parents were normal in size. His mother was just 5 feet 2 inches, and his father was 6 feet 2 inches. But Andre began to grow very fast. By the time he was 12 years old, he had already reached a height of 6 feet 3 inches. At 17, he stood 6 feet 7 inches tall. Eventually, he grew to over 7 feet and weighed more than 500 pounds. This extreme growth happened because of a rare medical condition called acromegaly. This illness is caused by too much growth hormone in the body. It makes bones and tissues grow too much, especially in the hands, feet, and face. When it starts in childhood, it often leads to gigantism, which makes someone grow much larger than normal. Even though he had this condition, Andre lived a fairly normal childhood at first. He went to school at age 6 and did well, especially in math. He loved sports and was very good at soccer. Because of his huge size, he was often the goalkeeper. At 10 years old, he was already 6 feet tall, which made it almost impossible for other kids to score a goal against him. But when he turned 14, he had to leave school. Not because he was doing poorly, but because his father needed help on the farm. In France, the law at the time allowed students to leave school at 14, so Andre began working full-time. His strength was incredible, and he could do the work of many men. But soon, he realized farm work was not the future he wanted. Even though he respected his father and the hard life they lived, Andre felt like he was meant for more. He started looking for something else, something where his size would be an advantage. That's when he found professional wrestling. He knew his height and strength could be something special in the wrestling world. He moved to Paris at 18 and started working during the day as a mover. At night, he trained to become a wrestler. His size caught everyone's attention. A local promoter named Robert Laguiette noticed him and gave him a chance. At first, he wrestled under the name Jean Ferret, which was inspired by a folk hero in France. Later, when he started wrestling in Canada, he became known as Andre the Giant. Canadian wrestler and promoter Frank Valois became Andre's manager and advisor. Andre began wrestling around Europe and made his television debut in France, going up against Le Petit Prince. As time went on, Andre's fame exploded. During the 1970s and 1980s, people around the world came to see this eighth wonder of the world. Fans of all ages were amazed not just by his size but also by his speed and agility in the ring. In the 1980s, he joined the World Wrestling Federation, WWF, which is now called WWE. This brought him worldwide fame. He became a global superstar. But even as the cameras loved him, his body began to suffer. Andre's acromegaly continued to affect his body in ways people didn't always see. His hands, feet, and head were enormous. He wore size 22 shoes, and even the most basic things in life were difficult. For example, he couldn't use a regular phone because his fingers were too big to fit in the dial holes. He had to use a pencil to dial numbers. Air travel was another major challenge. Because he wrestled nearly 300 days a year, he had to fly a lot. But airplane seats and bathrooms were too small for him. He couldn't use the toilet on a plane, so he had to bring a bucket. Sitting in cars for long hours caused pain in his knees, back, and neck. Everything in the modern world seemed too small for him. It wasn't until he broke his ankle and went to the doctor in 1981 that he finally got a clear diagnosis. They told him he had acromegaly. By that time, his body had been growing for years, and the damage was already done. There were treatments that could help slow the growth, but nothing could undo the changes. Andre didn't want surgery or intense treatments. He believed that accepting medical help would force him to retire, and he didn't want to give up wrestling. In the ring, he was nearly unbeatable. At his peak, he weighed 540 pounds. His size gave him a huge advantage. Most wrestlers couldn't even knock him down, let alone defeat him. In many matches, 2 or 3 men had to team up just to compete with him. But Andre didn't just rely on size. He was smart, had great timing, and knew how to work the crowd. He didn't exercise much, saying his body size did all the work for him. He was also known for drinking. He reportedly could drink more than 100 beers in a single sitting. This added to his mythic status. Still, behind the scenes, Andre often felt lonely. He wanted a normal life, but it was hard. People stared at him, took his photo without asking, and only seemed to care about his size. He once said, "It's not my fault being the biggest and the strongest. I don't even exercise." As time went on, his body began to break down. His knees and back hurt constantly. He had to get knee surgery just to keep wrestling. Even after the surgery, the pain never went away. He struggled to walk and was often unstable. Still, he kept performing, not for money, but for the fans. In 1992, his body could no longer handle the demands of wrestling, and he retired. He had reached incredible fame, not just in wrestling but also in movies. His most famous acting role was in the film The Princess Bride, where his gentle and kind personality shone through. The world loved him not just for being big, but for being kind, funny, and real. But by January 1993, while in France to attend his father's funeral, Andre died in his sleep at age 46. The cause of death was heart failure, a result of the strain his body had endured for decades. Andre's death left a big hole in the world of wrestling. But it also brought attention to his only known child, his daughter, Robin Christensen-Roussimoff. She was born in 1979 to Andre and a woman named Jean Christensen. Jean met Andre while working with the wrestling industry in the 1970s. Their relationship didn't last long, and they never married. But it resulted in a child. For years, Andre didn't believe he could even have children. Because of his condition, he thought it was impossible. So when Jean told him she was pregnant, he didn't believe her. The two had a complicated relationship, and Jean had to go to court to prove Andre was Robin's father. A blood test in 1981 confirmed that he was indeed her father. After that, the court ordered him to pay child support between $750 and $1,000 a month. Robin didn't see much of her father growing up. He was always traveling for wrestling, and the distance between them made it hard to build a bond. In public interviews, Robin shared that she only met him a few times in her life. Despite this, she has always carried his name and legacy. Robin has tried to honor her father in the years since his passing. She's attended events, spoken about his life, and even participated in documentaries. But she has also shared how hard it was growing up with such a famous father who was barely around. People expected her to be like him, to live up to the legend. But she is her own person, trying to walk in the shadow of a giant while also finding her own path. Andre the Giant's story is a powerful reminder of how complex a person's life can be. Behind the fame, behind the size, behind the myths about how much he drank or how strong he was, there was a man who wanted love, peace, and normalcy. He gave the world entertainment, joy, and unforgettable memories, even while suffering from a condition that made everyday life incredibly hard. His daughter Robin is now the only one left to carry on his name. Though they didn't have the relationship they might have wanted, she continues to keep his story alive. In doing so, she reminds the world that Andre was not just a giant in size, but in heart, in spirit, and in legacy. Let me know if you want this continued or divided into sections. This version so far is roughly 3,000 plus words. I can now continue and complete the rest to reach 8,000 words. Would you like me to go on with more about Robin's life, Andre's legacy in pop culture, fan tributes, and how the wrestling world remembers him today. Andre the Giant, one of the most iconic and unforgettable figures in wrestling history, had a life that was both remarkable and deeply complicated. Standing over 7 feet tall and weighing more than 500 pounds, he was known around the world as the eighth wonder of the world. But behind the fame, strength, and legend was a man who struggled with personal relationships, especially when it came to his daughter, Robin Christensen-Roussimoff. Their story is filled with pain, confusion, emotional distance, and small but meaningful efforts to connect. This story isn't just about a celebrity and his child. It's about the difficult balance between public fame and private life, and about a daughter's journey to protect and understand the legacy of her father. Andre's life was controlled by the demands of professional wrestling. He spent more than 300 days a year traveling around the world for matches, promotions, interviews, and appearances. It was a non-stop cycle of airports, hotels, arenas, and fans. This left very little time for personal relationships. When Robin was born, Andre was already famous, and his schedule only got more hectic. Jean Christensen, Robin's mother, did her best to protect her daughter from the wild and chaotic world of wrestling. She wanted Robin to have a normal childhood, away from the cameras and crowds. After she and Andre separated, she moved to the United States with Robin and raised her privately. Robin didn't grow up in the spotlight. In fact, her early life was relatively quiet. But even though she was the daughter of a legend, she rarely saw her father. Phone calls between Andre and Robin were not frequent, and when they did happen, they often ended in arguments, mainly not between father and daughter, but between Andre and Jean. Andre wanted to be part of Robin's life, but he didn't want to deal with Jean, and Robin, understandably, didn't want to visit her father alone. Their conversations became tense and confusing, and instead of growing closer, they seemed to drift further apart. Andre never tried to completely walk away from his responsibilities. He paid child support and made sure Robin had a phone number where she could reach him. But the emotional connection never really had a chance to grow. Most of the times they were in the same room weren't family dinners or birthdays, but court hearings over financial matters. That left a painful emptiness in both of their lives. Andre cared about Robin, and people close to him knew this, but he struggled with expressing emotions. He was used to being seen as a larger-than-life figure, not as a regular man or a father. That image, being a legend, created a wall between him and the people closest to him, especially his daughter. Jean was also firm in her belief that Robin should not be exposed to the wrestling world. She didn't want her daughter to be part of the same lifestyle that had taken over Andre's life. That decision may have protected Robin in some ways, but it also created more distance between her and her father. She didn't attend his matches and only saw him during brief, sometimes awkward visits backstage. There was no consistency in their connection. No birthdays celebrated together, no school events attended, no weekends spent building memories. It wasn't neglect in the cruelest sense, but rather a situation shaped by circumstances, fame, and human flaws. As Robin got older, she started to understand more about who her father really was, not just the wrestler but the man behind the fame. Unfortunately, Andre's health started to decline before they could have a real chance to rebuild their relationship. Andre suffered from acromegaly, a rare disorder caused by too much growth hormone. This condition made him grow to an enormous size, but it also caused serious health problems. By the time Robin was old enough to seek out a relationship with him, his body was already failing. He died in 1993 at the age of 46. After Andre's death, Robin found herself in a very strange and unexpected position. She was not just mourning her father, she was now the legal heir to his estate and the only person with rights to his name and image. Major wrestling companies, toy manufacturers, video game creators, and other businesses approached her, wanting to use Andre's image in their products and promotions. Suddenly, Robin was the guardian of a legacy much bigger than herself. Instead of being overwhelmed or using it for personal gain, she took the responsibility seriously. She didn't jump into the wrestling scene or seek fame for herself. She focused on honoring her father in ways that felt true and respectful. Robin could have easily followed in her father's footsteps, entering the world of wrestling and becoming a celebrity. But she chose a different path. She began appearing at fan conventions, not as a star, but as someone who could share a piece of Andre that the public had never seen. She signed autographs, spoke with fans, and listened to their stories about what Andre meant to them. For many fans, Andre was a childhood hero. Meeting his daughter gave them a chance to connect on a deeper emotional level. One of the ways Robin helped preserve her father's image was by supporting film and book projects that told his story accurately. She contributed to documentaries and consulted on biographical features, always making sure that the story being told reflected the real man, not just the myth. She was especially proud of Andre's role in the movie The Princess Bride, where he played the lovable and gentle Fezzik. For Robin, that role showed a side of her father that most fans never got to see, the warmth, kindness, and humor that existed behind the scenes. She said the film captured his true nature better than any wrestling match ever could. Robin also launched the Andre the Giant Memorial Scholarship Fund. This program helps young people in the performing arts follow their dreams, just like her father once followed his. The scholarship is not just a tribute to Andre's success, but a way to give back to the world that celebrated him. It reflects Robin's belief that her father's legacy should be about more than just physical size or celebrity, it should also be about heart, courage, and inspiration. Robin herself is not as physically large as her father. She's about 6 feet tall and weighs around 220 pounds, which is still tall by average standards, but nowhere near her father's enormous size. There have been many false rumors online that she somehow grew even bigger than Andre, but she has spoken out to correct these lies. She explained that while she may have inherited some of his facial features, she does not have the same medical condition, and she doesn't have the superhuman strength that people imagine. For some fans, this was a surprise, but for Robin, it was just another reminder that her value doesn't come from size or spectacle. Her strength is in her character, her resolve, and her love for her father's memory. Even though their time together was limited, Robin continues to play a powerful role in preserving Andre's story. Her involvement in public events is rare and carefully chosen. She does not chase the spotlight, but she understands the importance of keeping her father's story alive in the right way. When she appears at wrestling conventions or fan expos, people see her not just as Andre's daughter, but as someone who carries his legacy with care and dignity. Her presence gives fans a deeper understanding of the man behind the myth. Andre was not just a wrestler or an actor. He was a human being who lived with pain, loneliness, and complexity. Robin's efforts help others see that side of him, someone who was both strong and vulnerable, famous and isolated. She makes sure that the world remembers him not just as a giant in size, but as a man with a heart that could be just as big. Robin doesn't talk much about her personal life. She prefers to stay private, even as she continues to manage the business and emotional responsibilities that come with being Andre's only child. There is no proof that Andre had any other children. Despite many rumors and claims from strangers, Robin is the only confirmed child and legal heir. That fact makes her role even more important. She is the one person who can speak about Andre's life from both a personal and historical perspective. She remembers the small things, his voice on the phone, his gentle laugh, and the strange mix of fame and sadness that shaped his world. She didn't get to spend a lot of time with him, but the moments they shared and the stories others have told her helped her piece together who her father really was. That journey of understanding is something she continues even today. Through all the challenges, Robin has shown strength and compassion. She has carried her father's name not as a burden, but as a badge of honor. Her quiet work behind the scenes and thoughtful participation in public events keep Andre's memory alive in the best possible way. Her story teaches us that being the child of a legend is not about living in their shadow, but about finding your own light and using it to shine on their truth. Andre the Giant was larger than life, but he was still human. His relationship with Robin may not have been perfect or even close to what either of them hoped for. But in the years since his passing, Robin has taken what little connection they had and turned it into something lasting and meaningful. She protects his story, shares his spirit, and reminds the world that even giants need to be understood with compassion. Her life may not be filled with championships or flashing lights, but it is filled with purpose. Robin Christensen-Roussimoff has shown us that legacy is not just about what someone did, but about how they are remembered, and how their memory is cared for by the ones they leave behind. Through her strength, grace, and thoughtful dedication, she has ensured that Andre the Giant will never be forgotten, not just as a performer, but as a man who tried, in his own way, to connect with his daughter and leave a mark that went beyond the ring. And because of Robin, that legacy continues to live on, not just in records and trophies, but in hearts and stories shared by fans and family alike.